Well, good morning. It is July 1st, 2020, and we're here again with Jim Wittenberg and Garry Goff.
Hi, guys.
Gary's in there someplace. And Garry Goff, so that we can do another episode of in-action airplanes, this one being the 105. So we're going to turn it around so we can... Okay, and we're going to wave to Todd. Hi, Todd. Okay, so we got the 105 here, and when we were here with Jim before, he was telling us about the F-5 because he had crew chiefed on that. So he also worked on the 105. So Jim, tell us a little bit about your experience with the 105.
My experience on the 105 was, my initial training was inspections, doing 25, 50, 75-hour inspections after the aircraft returned from flights. I didn't actually get to launch the airplanes. I did a little bit, not enough. Most of mine was done in inspections.
Okay, what kind of inspections were you doing?
We would do leading edge flaps, trailing edge flaps. We had grease inserts that we had to grease certain times. We would do the rat inspection, which I'll show you in a while where that was and what the purpose of it was.
Well, let's just walk up to the airplane, and you can start off like what you would do when you walked up to the airplane for your walk around as a plane captain.
Okay.
All right. And so now you worked on them where?
I had 6 months of my initial training at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, and then I went to Tockley, Thailand in '67. I stayed there till late '69. Spent 2 years over there on the F-105.
Okay.
What's interesting about him being at Tockley is my uncle was at Tockley flying F-105s at the exact same time. So these two guys could have been seeing each other. It's what a small world.
It is, except now this airplane we don't think was ever in Southeast Asia. We believe that it spent its entire career, or most of it, because we know it was in the Virginia Air National Guard. But when it was on active duty, we think it spent most of its time in Iceland as air defense. But let's go ahead and do the walk around, Jim.
Okay. Let's start here up here at the nose. You inspect the torpedo tube. Make sure it's clear and straight. Check the radome. Make sure it doesn't have any torn up parts.
Now that's where the gun barrel came out, right?
This is where the gun came.
Okay.
And, I believe 6 barrels.
6 barrel, yeah, 20 millimeter, over 1,000 rounds.
Oh, so it had a Gatling gun.
Gatling gun, yeah.
Okay.
Then we do our tire inspection, strut inspection.
Now, what are you looking for?
Looking for making sure the wiring is secure, no hydraulic leaks.
Now, it looks like this airplane had nose wheel steering.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
This is the torque link here will connect. So your nose wheel steering, you disconnect them. You're going to tow with a tug.
And for anybody who's watching that doesn't know, nose wheel steering means that you use the rudder pedals like you would the wheel on a car. And as you push the rudder pedals, there was a hydraulic assist to help the nose wheel go back and forth. If you just use the rudders themselves, it was limited. But if you pressed a button usually on the stick along with the rudders, then you got more travel on the nose gear, and it was like power steering.
Yes, it is. And you'd also, sometimes you would assist a little bit on top of the rudder pedal, which is your brake. It also help you assist on turning. From there, we just look up in the nose wheel well, make sure we have no leaks, that everything looks good. Let's go around to this side.
Good.
This compartment right here is the one that I was telling you about, the rat.
And let's explain the rat to everybody.
It's a ram air turbine. It comes out, and we'll show you one here in a little bit that's extended. This one here we don't have extended. And if you lose power, it's going to help generate electrical, hydraulic pressure to hopefully get you back home if something happens.
Well, we've shown them to people before because we've got one on the A4 that's out, and it's going to give you limited electricity for radios and basic navigation, and be able to operate a few things so you can probably get the airplane back on the ground. So.
In our intakes, this airplane was originally designed as a F-107, and the intake was on top of the backbone, and they found out that the engines didn't have enough air. So they put the intakes out on the side here on the F-105, which allowed more air to these big engines, allowed it to go faster and perform better.
Well, it's a real unusual intake on this thing. What engine did this one have?
J75.
J75. So that's the precursor to the F4's J79.
Yeah, right. With water injection and afterburner, the water injection allowed, when you're in an afterburner, allowed the more thrust on takeoff.
Okay, so that was using it on takeoff, not airborne. Yeah.
And our Bombay, usually this is closed with a centerline tank, a MRRAG, bombs in the center. And it was large enough to where we carried a centerline internal fuel tank.
A lot of pipes and stuff in here.
A lot of hardware. And if the airplane was assigned in Europe, it was capable of carrying a nuke. All the stuff was centered off of this plunge and mounting wire right here in the middle to eject.
Yeah, and the plunger up there would help assist the whatever that was in here that you wanted away out.
Yes, it'd push it away from the airplane so you wouldn't fly into it.
Well, we've got the guides here on the inside. I think what's unusual about the 105 is that the Bombay doors came up on the inside of the airplane as opposed to what people would normally see, where it would be they would come down like on the old B-17s.
They come up to right about here. They swing down. It's just like a clamshell.
Okay, and that's because it was supersonic.
Yes.
If it came out in a slipstream, it was probably going to get ripped off. And that's one of the reasons for the ejector rack. When you're going that fast, you've got a shell of air around the airplane, and you can release something, and it potentially could have just stayed right here in the bay. So by getting that, you're breaking it through that air area, that flow of air, and getting it away from the airplane. So really interesting. I know this is inside the Bombay is what a lot of the kids really like here.
Yes.
So what are all the pipes in here for?
You got fuel. Your fuel pipes are here for the centerline tank. So depends upon what your tape color code. You come down here and look at this. You have this tape right here. It's different colors, and it has different markings on it depending upon if it's fuel, hydraulics.
Well, pneumatics too, probably.
Pneumatics.
Yeah. And then is some of this just conduit for electrical wiring? I see some bare wiring, but I can't imagine that this is all for air.
Because you see the pipes here.
Yeah.
With the wires coming out. It was just to keep it more tucked in.
Okay.
And a lot of this piping is, from the front of the airplane to the back of the airplane. The power things, So we got the.
Good.
Now, I know we get questions about this all the time. These are not bombs, are they?
These are wing tanks, fuel tanks.
Okay, do you know how many gallons these things hold? These look like they're probably 150s.
Probably, if they're 750 or 500, I'm not sure.
Okay, here's one of the other things that's always amazed me about this airplane. Reach your hand up. So how tall are you, Jim?
6'1".
6'1". So we're talking about 7 feet at any rate under here, maybe even taller than that. This airplane stands up so tall that it's always amazed me that when you see it flying and stuff, it doesn't seem to be as big as it is when you're standing right next to it. It's always bigger. It's taller than an F4, and you walk under the wing, and the wing is way up there.
Yeah, and then when I came out of tech school to Dallas to work on this airplane at the age of 18 years old, you look at it and you're in awe. Because I was never around airplanes or anything before I joined the military, and it was like, this is a big airplane.
It's 5 feet shorter than a B-17.
That's amazing, and carries more weapons than a B-17.
It would carry 15,000 pounds of bombs. They are typically 750s on the center line here, and then a pod out there for comm jamming or electrical jamming. But think about that. 15,000 pounds of bombs. My gosh.
Take your external fuel tanks, both your external fuel tanks off. You have a pylon, and you can carry 3, 6, 12 bombs, 750s on that MUR rack. Same thing with the center line tank. You remove it, you put a MUR rack on it. So you have 3 stations with 12 bombs on each station. So
That's a lot.
yes.
A lot of explosive.
There's something else before we get too far away from the cockpit. When they first started flying this airplane, because it was one of the first airplanes to fly 1,000 miles an hour, that they found out that the canopy started to melt.
No way.
And so the canopy is a double layer canopy so that they had coolant going through the canopy.
No way.
To keep it from overheating.
Did you know that, Jim? I didn't know that either. Holy cow. Wow.
See, we Marines actually know some things sometimes.
See, I was on the outside,
Not on the inside.
In the wheel well here, you see the screen here.
Yeah, let me get the camera swung around.
That screen allowed extra air into the intakes, engine bay.
So
when
that
it's
was
on the ground.
that was
It
for
helped
ground
cool it.
use. Okay.
Help keep it cool.
Because you don't have any ram air coming through the airplane. So
No.
Okay.
And then
Well,
you got
is that what the louvers
right
the same
here.
thing?
They would be open on the ground because this is a hot engine, and they needed coolant on the ground.
Okay. So what's the fin down here in the bottom?
And this is the ventral, what we call the ventral fin. It was a ECM, electronic
Countermeasures?
countermeasure antenna.
Okay.
Really?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, I thought
Never
it was
did-
for stability.
I did too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it had ECM on it. Fascinating.
There's a small bore inside of it. That's the way I've been told.
Okay. And so now this one's got a tail hook.
Yes, which we did use several times that I know of on landing.
Hydraulics and everything, yeah.
Hydraulic failures. This is the stabilizer, up, down.
Well, now it's interesting because now this is a 1955 airplane. Essentially, well, but I mean the airplanes were originally designed in 55, and we've looked at like the T-33, which was just before this, and they don't have flying tails. So this one's got a flying tail.
Right.
And
So you can go supersonic.
well, so you can go supersonic, and it's also going to give you better control of the nose and things like that. So.
And when we remove the engine from this split line right here, inside, and we'd have to remove this whole aft, we call the aft section, to be able to remove the engine on there.
Okay.
Does the tail stay there, or does the tail go with it?
The tail stays there.
Okay.
It comes off.
So it just slides right back.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're going to say a quick hi to Vincent from Holland today.
Hi, Vincent. Okay, now those little things up on the top of the tail, they weren't there, right?
No, we just put that on there to keep birds off.
No, it's tactical. It's to keep the birds off. It's
Yeah,
a tactical
it's a
improvement,
tactical
right?
improvement. Now these airplanes, the tail code we've got on here is Tango Hotel. Now that's for the 301st here in Fort Worth, correct? Okay. So what else do you want to tell us on the walk around here?
And on the this is speed brake.
Yep. Weird.
I don't know of another airplane that is designed with speed brakes of this kind.
Strange.
But what they would do was when they coming in for landing, when they lower the gear, these would go wide open, all four of them at the same time.
Everybody can see where they're hinged.
So like a flower petal.
Like right here, you can see where it's hinged. So that's where they would come out. It's fascinating. As opposed to a nozzle or the afterburner, this thing becomes a speed brake.
Now does this?
When it is just sitting static, we've got these closed up to where they're not hanging. When this hangs loose, no power, it would probably be down here, not here.
Okay.
And when they start the engine, that's where it would also be. So when they go into afterburner on this thing, they close up as tight as they can.
So
That's
do you,
where it's at right
now do you still have vanes on the engine though for the afterburner? So was there still the vanes or turkey feathers on the engine itself, or was it all right here in the
No,
tail?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, look over the F4. See, the F4's got over there. You can see the way it's got what we call turkey feathers. That allows the nozzle to expand and contract, so you get a better afterburner flow. Whereas on the 105, this was an interesting development because they hadn't gotten there yet on technology, and it's just amazing that this would become a speed brake. It's amazing.
Does this airplane have a drag chute?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I thought it was up there in the tail, wasn't
The
it?
drag chute compartment is right underneath that little cutout
Okay.
on the rudder. It's about this big,
Okay.
and it lays down just above the
Okay.
speed brakes.
Well, and what's this big red thing sticking out down here?
This is called a gangrene.
Yeah.
Okay.
You think it's backwards because of the direction of the cut, but what it does is assist fuel pressures and draining external if they have to real quick. But it will. I've known several people that have gotten bit by it.
Well, that's cool. Got John Zeta's on. He said he's watching with his 7-year-old son today, and I think we've got David from Taiwan with us again.
Hi, David.
Very good.
What is what's the yellow thing here?
This is a grounding point where you put a plug in. It's got with a ground wire, and you ground it to the
Why would you need to
ground.
do that on a jet? It's got rubber tires or something.
Eliminate static electricity.
Ah, okay.
You still have, when you're refueling,
Yes.
you still have to have dissipate static
Boom.
electricity, so you hook into here and
Got
hook
it.
into a grounding point on the ground.
Well, my brother's watching today too, so keep me honest.
Most of what Jim said is true.
Yeah. Now, is most of this the same on this side as the other side?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And this is just another intake to allow cool air
engine.
to cool the engine bay
Okay.
through it.
So we've talked about how this airplane was used in Vietnam, mostly as a bomber. In fact, there's a place over there referred to as Stud Ridge. Oh, we want to show one other thing. Here's one of these static ports. We've talked about these before. And here's the static port here. And so that's a place where the air is essentially aerodynamically dead. And so the airplane can calculate between the dead air at this point and the air coming in through the pitot tube and can determine how fast the airplane is moving and its altitude. And they're heated because if they would ice up, you get what's referred to as reverse sensing. So when you were going up, you'd think you're going down, and when you're going fast, you'd think you were going slow, and that has killed a lot of people. So let's tell me.
We have these little ports right here. It looks like a ground port, but this is actually a, you push this in and it drains fuel
Okay.
out.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So it's like a drain port, like a petcock almost.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
we got another one here. So between the two of you, this airplane spent most of its time in Iceland, we think. So what was the mission of the airplane in Iceland? If we're going to do bombing missions in Southeast Asia, I think, Garry, you referred to it as being Air Defense Command. What was their job as opposed to dropping bombs?
If you are sitting in Iceland, the only reason why I know about Iceland is the F-15s that when I was flying, that was one of the assignments, and they set air defense alert, which means that your whole job was to prevent Russians from flying over our territory. I can imagine with this jet being air defense, because it could carry air-to-air missiles, I would bet it was also on alert, or would help the guys in Spangdahlem and in Bitburg that had these for nuke alert, so spend nuke alert. But if it's air defense, that's their primary job, was to get airborne as fast as you could and stop the Russian bombers from coming in.
Well, now, we're talking about two totally different environments.
Completely.
Southeast Asia is tropical. You're talking about high humidity, probably a lot of problems with corrosion. But now you're going to Iceland.
Freezing.
You're
been there.
freezing. Okay, so now how do you operate there? Do you take the airplanes and start them up in the hangar? Do you do anything to warm up the oil or anything?
I think we had like things in the intake that would keep the engine warm. That when they sat on alert when it got real cold, I think they had something that kept the actual aircraft warm, so that if you jumped in, you started it right up, you could blast off immediately.
Yeah,
Otherwise
I would think you would sit in and you'd have to warm up because the engine starts to expand as it warms up,
Exactly.
its seals start to close up, and those kinds of things. And I know also working outside, you've got useful work time outside of only 10 to 15 minutes.
And it's really difficult for the pilot because that's a fairly tight cockpit, and you've got to wear what we call poopy suits. And imagine a wetsuit, but a big, gigantic wetsuit that is full of real thick rubber. And the whole idea, you had rubber on here, and you had footies, and everything was rubber on your wrist, so that if you ever had to bail out, eject out over the North Atlantic, above the Arctic Circle, you could get about 1 to 1.5 minutes of usable hands and fingers to get into the raft. And so this thing is huge, man. It's like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So I can imagine the guy running up the ladder to jump in the jet to take off. Jim would be the guys that squish him in there. Just, okay, you're in.
Get the big shoehorn.
And put their safety, their shoulder
Harnesses,
and lap
all
guards.
that, and make sure they're together.
Right.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
So we're just about out of time here today, but is there anything either of you want to mention about this airplane before we sign off for the day?
First airplane to go 1,000 miles an hour. 1,000, it actually went 1,300 miles an hour.
Okay, fast.
And on its initial flight, very first time, they had no idea if the airplane could fly or not. The guy takes it supersonic and he goes 1.2 Mach.
That's pretty cool.
Dude, this is an awesome jet. Freaking awesome.
Fastest airplane on the ground.
Amen, brother. Preach on.
Well, and there's one other thing that we used to say about it, since it was built by Republic, is that they'll you build a runway, and Republic will build an airplane that will use up every inch of that
That's
runway.
what that little front thing was, to find the end of the runway. So
Oh, is
they
that
knew
what
to
it
take
was?
off.
Okay.
That was how the airplane knew to
Very
take
good.
off.
Okay.
And this thing needed a lot of runways, especially when it was fully loaded.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
With
the
bombs.
heat in Thailand, oh my God, because the motor just doesn't perform in that.
Well, and I've seen them take off out of Georgia and California in the desert too, and they just roll and roll and roll and roll and roll.
rolling. Yeah.
All right. Well, Garry, glad to have you with us again today, and Jim, thanks for being with us again.
Dude, that was awesome, Jim. Dude, that was so cool to learn about the airplane.
So, folks, thanks for being with us again for another day of Fun with Aviation, and today being in action with the F-105. We'll be back with you on Saturday. Don't know what the subject's going to be yet, but we're going to come up with something for you. In the meantime, be safe, and we look forward to having you all come out. The museum is open from 9 until 2 on Saturday, but it's going to be hot, so come early. So for now, from the Fort Worth Aviation Museum, home of the most touchable warbirds in Texas, happy 4th of July.
See ya.